We've now reached episode 4 of the season, and if it's not clear by now, the reason we're heading through them different than normal is because the first 6 episodes form a single story arc, hence why we'll discuss it in greater detail when we get to the end of the arc in April. This episode begins with Ivanova giving a new briefing to the residents of Babylon 5 to update them on the situation, which conveniently provides the exposition about the Vorlon fleet wiping out whole worlds in their war against the Shadows. There's also discussion of evacuation efforts, relocation of refugees, etc., that adds to the verisimilitude of the story with the way it is framed about a disastrous attack and the impact on innocent people just trying to survive it. Although I would have preferred not having actual events going on to serve as an immediate comparison. That really was not needed, world. We were just fine imagining things. Things aren't exactly panicked, but they are very unsteady. So when a woman falls to the floor amidst a crowd, Sheridan emerges to get the crowd to spread out and allow him to help her up. It's clear there is already an aura about his person, that the legend of Sheridan has become much larger than the man is.
You heard?
I heard.
They need to believe.
Not in me.
You can't save them all.
I can try.
You'll fail.
We'll see.
Good talk, I'm glad we hashed that out. After the titles, we start getting the sense that this is bothering Garibaldi, who watches stills from the event in his quarters. Lorienne's the issue, he tells Zack. He's this guy who's came from nowhere and is following Sheridan everywhere now. And admittedly, in another episode, this is the kind of person who would get your spider sense tingling. It's just that we've seen him advise Sheridan for several episodes now, so we know he's probably on the level and not some kind of mind-controlling alien or something. Still, Garibaldi is...
He breezes in here, says he's back from the dead, feeling much better, thank you very much, and everybody buys it. Boy, howdy, that's great. Yes, sir, good to have you back. Meanwhile, I get the 3rd degree, and are you okay, Chief? Every time I sneeze.
Being kind of an asshole. So Zack gives him the good news that after one more checkup, he can get back to work like he wants. So that's something. Maybe he just needs to have something to be busy with, and he'll stop being so paranoid. And speaking of being paranoid, the Centauri Emperor. He has summoned Londo to a late meeting so that with Mr. Morden present, Londo can learn what is happening with the Vorlons right now. Naturally, Londo is aghast and wants the Shadows to leave, but Mr. Morden counters that they would never destroy Centauri Prime for the logical reason of they don't have the will. Yeah, I wouldn't bet my civilization on that.
Do as he says, Minardi. We must be courteous to our guests.
Oh yeah, I'd hate to do something as intolerable as being rude just to prevent the apocalypse. After Mr. Morden is gone, Cartagia assures Londo that he has no intention of committing their fleet to oppose the Vorlons as Morden had said. This sounds good until Cartagia blesses Londo with a rare opportunity, a chance to see his table covered in heads. Now, no, these are not trophies from his vanquished enemies. That'd be ridiculous. No, these are guys who talk with him and give him advice. The reason the fleet will not be opposing the Vorlons is that the Emperor plans for the destruction of Centauri to be his moment to ascend to godhood. And I can't fault the logic of that plan, because there would need to be some. Back on B5, Garibaldi's physical is very thorough, although not totally thorough, as a finger-up-the-butt joke is implied but not followed through on. But a check in case they pulled that same thing with Garibaldi that they had on Sheridan's wife turns up nothing. So he wasn't taken by the Shadows, at least not for that reason. Garibaldi himself has no answer to what happened. He figures he must have just gotten his Star Fury caught in the backwash of so many shadow vessels taking off. Wrong place, wrong time. Although when you're near a shadow vessel, that's, well, kind of always applies, doesn't it? Now that we're about a third of the way through the episode, there's time for Sheridan to finally have a moment with Delenn. She speaks about her guilt. He talks about finally having closure with Anna, and says that Delenn was the one he mentally clung to as he fell. Personal moment in the midst of all of this war stuff, and it should be noted how brief this is, considering all that had gone unspoken before they had parted. Perhaps this is because of the realization that when you think you might never see someone again, you strip away the need to dance around things and can be direct about what you think and feel. That you'll stop playing the subconscious games we all play and make sure to say everything that you should have. But back to the war. Besides the humanitarian crisis they'll face from the wounded, some races have only B5 as a surviving place that has their own kind, meaning that they may be inundated with more refugees than they're equipped or supplied to handle. Franklin suggests setting up something on the planet below. The Vorlons have no reason to touch it after all, so unless they're just blowing up planets just for being there, they should be fine. Sheridan agrees, but thinks that we have a problem requiring more immediate attention. The not Kosh Vorlon ambassador, who is no longer working with their interests in mind. The reason that Garibaldi has been so upset, in part, is that Sheridan has been keeping him in the dark. Well, there's a reason for that. He wants Garibaldi to help do something about not Kosh, but they can't risk the ambassador reading Garibaldi's mind. So he wants Garibaldi to tell the dude to leave. He'll likely refuse, and when the issue is forced, he will then kick their asses. You thought Garibaldi had lost faith in Sheridan earlier. This is not going to build a lot of trust. After he leaves, Lita and Lorien come in to get on with the real plan of dealing with the Vorlon ambassador. As is pointed out, they're not in the same league as the Shadows. They're not going to be able to take down a Vorlon as easily as it was for them. Well, that's kind of obvious. A call comes in from Londo for Sheridan, who just wants to confirm that the Vorlons have gone all Death Star on the Shadows. And Sheridan confirms it and says, Centauri Prime, yeah, you're about 7 or 8 days away from the time for your last big going out of business sale. As for the more immediate problem, Lita heads in and tells the ambassador that she knows now that a piece of Kosh is definitely still inside one of the humans on this station, which this guy finds an offensive thought, so he's going to do something about that. She lures him right into the trap. His mistake was standing on the big bullseye on the floor. I've seen enough Roadrunner cartoons to know how that would end. While that's going on, they go in with the big guns. Of course, those might be easier for the Vorlon to stop. Follow me on this. Remember that the weapons on board are all chosen specifically so that they can't accidentally blow a hole in the side of their space station. On account of that would be a bad thing, which, not faulting that choice. Good decision. It's just that I'm wondering if it might be possible for the Vorlons to be able to protect themselves from that kind of thing, since there is, material that can't be harmed by it. Because this guy's taking the punishment pretty well there, I think. See, I'm not even sure that Squidward popped up because he had to, or maybe if he just decided it was an easier way to end this crap. Either way, he does not look happy. While thrashing about, Delenn is in danger, so Sheridan runs over, only for him to get grabbed instead. But this was actually all part of the plan. Kosh's fragment now emerges from Sheridan for a surprise attack. Kosh is the smaller, greener one here, though he has been supplemented by a bit of Lorien to help even it up a bit. During all of this, the Vorlon ship launched, and the Vorlons are pulled out of the station and into it, where it blows up, ending the threat of the Vorlon ambassador.
Well, that wasn't such a chore now, was it?
Lorien brings him back from the edge of death again, but I'm not sure that'll work for everyone on Centauri Prime. We're going to need a different plan there. But not to worry, Londo is finally getting into his end game. Possibly sooner than he'd planned to, but doesn't matter at this point. Tick-tock, tick-tock, Vorlon's going to smash this rock. So he goes to Cartagia to discuss his rise to godhood, and how that's really great and all that, but there's something that you're missing here. No, it's not the fact that your people will all be wiped out. That's incidental to the problem. They'll be gone, but with them will be the memory of your greatness. What are we going to do then? Have you be a god with nobody to remember you? I mean, that's just unworthy. So, what, he says, if we make the Narn remember? We will try and execute Jakar on the Narn homeworld in front of his people, That'll really make a mark. Show him who's boss there, and then when Carthage is a god, they'll remember him and spread word of other people about how great of a god he is, the way that he, executed somebody. Well, Carthage sees the wisdom of this in the end. I mean, wisdom has passed through the filter of raving madness. This dolt thinks that he can attain godhood by having his planet blown up. I'm using the term loosely here. On B5, the fleet is gathering, but Garibaldi, try not to be too surprised, rains on the parade about it. So what? Even if we're not all killed in this, even if we somehow manage to win, we're still screwed anyway. It doesn't fix any of our real problems. It just means that we won't die quickly. I don't know what happened to him out there, but this guy has become about as fun as cleaning an oil spill off of rocks. Speaking of cheeriness, Delenn has brought in a talk with Sheridan about Lorien and his situation. Sheridan was dying at Zahadum, so Lorien did what he could to prolong his life, but what he did is limited in its effect. Sheridan's got 20 years at most. Sheridan is willing to accept that, but Delenn is horrified at the thought of him dying decades ahead of his time. On the bright side, he can go back to those Snickers bars and Marlboros without a worry. Life's too short, man. Actually, on that topic, Sheridan finds the engagement ring that he was going to give to Delenn. He'd stashed it in his quarters, and I guess that Franklin must have missed it when he was packing all his stuff up. Oh, maybe Sheridan's Dilgar porn stash might still be here, too. So, looks like this whole thing between them is official, just like the Emperor's decision to go to Narn. Although there is one small snag there. Carthage just isn't too thrilled with the way that G'Kar is looking at him. So he decides to pluck G'Kar's eye out. Remember that in the future G'Kar was wearing an eye patch? Well, it wasn't because of a career as a pirate. Cool as that would have been. Well, next week it's The Long Night.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
There's one more thing I want to check, though.
Oh, no, come on, man. I really hate that.
Don't worry, it's not that.